Hey everyone, James Niggemeyer here. Thank you for tuning back into the YouTube channel. Today I'd like to do an episode for my playlist, Tackle Prep Tip. That's where I really go over how I like to prep tackle for a day of fishing, or maybe even on the water making adjustments. This episode will be about treble hooks. Treble hooks are a key component to hooking and landing fish on your hard baits, your jerk baits, your top waters, your crankbaits. For example purposes, I'm going to use crankbaits today. There's a big portion of the angling community that likes these types of extra wide gap type bends here. I think you can see that. They're not your typical round bend. Your round bend is more like this here, and the difference being these extra wide gaps actually point back to the hook shank. One of the trains of thought that people have about this, because it points back to the hook shank, it's harder to lose a fish. And I would agree with that. Once you have them hooked, once you have them pinned, these extra wide gap style hooks are key. My favorite is the Stinger treble hook by Owner. It's STY35M, and it's an X-Strong gauge. And it has this silky gray finish. That silky gray finish is just super slick metal. If you've not used it or seen it, it's like, seems frictionless. It's just amazing how silky smooth it is. That's that gray finish that you can see right there. The other reason I like these is because they have a short shank, so I can upsize my crankbait hooks, but also it has a wider gap on one side. And that's key, in my opinion, when it comes to treble hooks and crankbaits, because that gap can kind of ride right up against the belly, and as the crankbait is wobbling, you still have points exposed, enabling you to hook fish better than your traditional round bend like this. If you can see that, those round bends almost point into the body. Even your other brands of extra wide gaps tend to point back into the body, making it harder for a fish to hook up. So that's why I really like the Stinger treble short shank. That 150-degree spread, what they call premium point positioning, I gotta say, I really like it. It's actually my favorite hook. More times than not, I'm just gonna be using that. However, there are times when I feel like you ought to go with a round bend. And that's what this video is about, is just to kind of help you figure out when you should throw an extra wide gap hook and then when you should throw a round bend. And as a general rule, if the fish are not biting the bait really well, if you have them just kind of hanging off on one hook and they're kind of hooked just on the outside or just on the very edge of the lip, then I'm gonna start looking at possibly going to a round bend. And the reason why I like a round bend is because when they're biting it, they're slapping it and they're just barely missing it or hitting it, and they're even getting caught on the side of the gill plate or something like that, then it seems to me, my theory is, and I've heard this from another angler, I feel like it's sound wisdom. On the round bend, the point of the hook is actually pointing parallel to the shank of the hook. And so that makes it more exposed. And when fish are slapping at it and just barely coming by and maybe just reacting at it, maybe the water's really cold, they're not quite, aggressive or don't have a lot of energy, that to me gives you a better opportunity to hook those fish. If they're slapping at these types of hook, they can miss the point. If you see here, with that type of a hook, it's like the point is pointing back towards the bait. And that's what it's doing. It's kind of coming back around in kind of a kale type design. So I generally will switch out to a round bend, and that's when I'll go to the Owner Stinger treble. It's their ST36BC, and it's also an X-Strong type shank or material. And so it's got a lot of beef to it. You can see right there, I mean, it's got a lot of metal. And I like that because I don't want, when I have a fish hanging on a small hook like that, I want my metal to be a stronger gauge so that when they apply pressure, it's not flexing open, creating a tear in the fish's mouth and then potentially losing them. That's really the process that I go through for selecting treble hooks when fishing crankbaits. Most times I'm gonna go with the extra wide gap style, and that Owner with 150-degree precision point placement, I'm gonna go with that just because it's been a really good one for me. I feel like I hook fish and hook them well. I just like the results with it. But then there's times when you feel like you're maybe losing fish or you're not getting them hooked well and they're maybe just not biting or not biting with a lot of aggression. Then I go to the round bend. That's really the process that I go through when fishing crankbaits, but in general, jerk baits, top waters, and all that. Wanted to share that bit of information with you guys. Hopefully you guys find some value in it. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And then if you haven't subscribed, please do that. I would appreciate it. And check out my merch. I'll leave a link in the description below, as well as my website will be in there. And then you can follow me on social, Facebook, Instagram, and so forth. Thanks for watching. And until next time, good fishing.